The life that we are living and the way that we are living life is greatly shaped by the stories that we are telling ourselves about ourselves. Stepping into your greatness begins with taking ownership for these personal narratives so that you can rewrite your story, heal, and transform. You're about to hear from someone who has been on a journey of doing so and is here to help you do the same. What is up, Ascenders? Welcome to Awaken, a show on which we have conversations to assist you in awakening your consciousness into your highest purpose and potential. My name is Bryan Henry. I'm the founder of Together We Ascend. I'm also a transformation coach and your host of the show. If this is your first time tuning in and you are someone who is on a path of spiritual and personal growth and would like to continue to receive content that will support you on this journey, I invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel or the podcast, wherever you're listening to this from. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back, family. If you've been listening to and enjoying the show and it's been serving you, I would greatly appreciate it if you took a moment to leave us a review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This really helps the show grow, get out to more people, and supports us in continuing to be able to create this content. And lastly, consider sharing the podcast with somebody that you care about to support them on their journey. In this episode, I'm speaking to Michael Oshia, who is a coach, a mentor, a wellness retreat facilitator who draws upon his wisdom that he has cultivated in his transformative experiences working with the plant medicine, ayahuasca, to support individuals and businesses in stepping into their greatness, which is exactly what you're going to hear us get into in this conversation. We speak about how we can take ownership for our personal narratives and rewrite the stories that we're telling ourselves to radically shift the potential that we're expressing. You'll hear us touch on themes like vulnerability and integrity and what it really means to live in our greatness. And of course, how we can step into doing so. What do you say we jump in? This is Awaken with Michael Oshia. Michael Oshia is a beacon of inspiration for those seeking adventure, healing, and profound change. While living in the Philippines years ago, he heard a deep calling to venture inward, to face his fears, self-limiting beliefs, and disconnection with himself. Michael answered this call, which took him onto a journey deep into the heart of the Amazon forest in Peru and Colombia to explore the depths of his being. Over the past 5 years, he has immersed himself in the ancient healing practice of ayahuasca ceremonies, ayahuasca being a sacred plant medicine and powerful psychedelic healing modality. These transformative experiences have led Michael on a journey of inner healing, self-discovery, and profound transformation. Drawing upon the wisdom he has cultivated, Michael now organizes and facilitates retreats in the lush lands of Costa Rica, supporting others on their path of growth and healing. He also works as a coach, empowering his clients to break free from stagnation and stuckness and embrace a life of greatness. Michael also just recently published his first book, Ayahuasca, Preparing for the Journey Within, Intentions, Fears, and Integration. Through integrating ancient wisdom with practical strategies, Michael offers a holistic approach to transformation to help both individuals and businesses reach their full potential. Michael Oshia stands as a guide, a mentor, and a catalyst for those seeking to transcend their perceived limitations, embrace adventure, and live a life full of greatness. My brother, thank you for joining me on the show. Welcome to Awaken.
Thank you, brother. That was quite the intro. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Well, I think it only just begins to set the stage for the type of man that you are, and I'm looking forward to getting this opportunity to share a bit about have you share a bit of your story and the wisdom with all those that feel called to tune into this episode.
Thank you, brother. I look forward to seeing what you have for me and seeing what comes through from between the both of us. It seems to usually be a pretty powerful connection when we chat.
So here's where I want to begin. You say that there was a point in your journey where it was a bit of a pivotal moment for you, and that's the point at which you heard this call to go inward and confront well yourself. I know that from what I've seen you share, there's a lot that you're putting out there about the importance of discovering who we are beyond societal expectations and what others might expect of us. And I'm willing to guess that the only reason that you're able to speak to the importance of this is because there was a point in your journey where you may have been succumbed to these things. So I want to first start with hearing about where were you? What was your experience like prior to this turning point in which you started to look inward?
Mm. Yeah, I had been working in hospitality for a solid 17 years. And it started in Reno, Nevada, where I'm from, took me to Las Vegas, early 2000s when the nightclubs kind of took off. And I fell into that scene very quickly. It was fast, it was quick, it was fun, it was crazy. That kind of led me further away, I think, from my authentic being that I could have ever even imagined. Allowed me some great opportunities, experiences, and pathways to continue to see the world the way I started to realize was at the depth of my being something I truly love to do is just travel the world. Eventually, it took me to backpack Europe, live in Bali for 6 months, and then land a job in Singapore back in the hospitality. And that continued to move into, I think, the disassociation of knowing who I truly was as I was seeking this path of, I didn't realize in my travel journeys what I was seeking was to really discover myself. And finally hit a head when I was living in the Philippines. And I usually say this because I feel it's the truth. At the peak of my hospitality career, where I had the best job that I'd ever had in my career, I had the best title, was making the most money, had the biggest responsibility, kind of was at the stage of where like it was going to be which way do I want to go with this? And I was really depressed. Even talking about it starts to make me realize how lost I was at the time. Every day was put on the mask, go to work, show up for the people that I felt needed it the most, which was this culture of the Philippines that just, man, I mean, they worked 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, and they traveled to and from work an hour each way. And it was like, who am I to sit and complain about where I'm at with my emotions and my time and my freedom? And so every day was, I wanted to show up for them. But the further and further and further I did that, the further I was distancing myself away from the emotions that were trying to come through for me to look at for myself, that was on my heart, that's been begging me to look at for probably 20 years. And then luckily a best friend had been starting his journey and with the medicine, with ayahuasca, and healing his own addictions with alcohol and substance abuse. And he held my hand, he showed me the way, he comforted me through the resistance, through the unknown. And I got to find my first ceremonies in March of 2019, and it removed the veil quite loudly. It was impossible to ignore at that point that there was more within that I needed to discover. And that started the one-way journey to South America. And from there, it led me to move to Costa Rica to want to bring more of that healing to other people and to allow the opportunity for other people to discover the beauty in which I found of myself, which allowed me to meet you in Costa Rica and allowed me to then step into a realm of thinking and realizing and believing that I have a gift that I can share with people in my own unique way, starting a coaching program and continued to, and then moving into writing a book that I never thought was possible. 2.5 years ago, the idea showed up and I was like, there's no way, that's not for me.
Yeah.
And now I'm here, which is interesting. After all this, it's still, I've realized it's not ever about finding the journey of getting there, but it's about
Yeah.
continually learning that you're always unfolding, you're always unpacking, and you're always on the road again of just rediscovering yourself. And that's why I feel it's like this getting out of stuck all the time. Like I'm always unstucking myself,
Yeah.
stepping into these new chapters of greatness. Like, and I've watched you do over the last 3 years of knowing you. It's like it can happen over and over. The greatness can happen reoccurringly. It can be a catalyst for a new greatness every chapter. And it's been a really exciting journey, quite crazy, but exciting. And yeah, here we are.
Here we are, man, stepping into a new level of greatness. As you shared, there's always a new level, I think, and with that comes also, I think, new challenges that we have to overcome. Which I think it's such an important realization to come to, that journey never ends, because
Mm,
then we let go of this idea of, someday I will get there and it'll all be better, right? Yeah, things are going to get better and better and better, but I think there's a beauty in learning to embrace that those challenges are also going to keep coming. And um, I know something that we've talked to as well is that, those challenges bring to us a lesson, they bring to us a
mm.
gift, and learning to embrace that those challenges are there to serve that purpose of helping us, supporting us, and stepping into that next level of greatness. I think it makes for a smoother ride a little bit, but then it also opens us up to receive those lessons more fully and more openly. Um, so, anyways, I want to go back actually to hear more about your actual experience with the healing, and first coming to doing this type of inner work and healing, because well, it sounded like there's a lot that had to come up for you for that process to take place. You mentioned seeing some sort of success externally, being in a great place in your career, but inwardly there were these challenges and emotions that you hadn't yet faced.
Mm.
So tell me more about what that experience of first beginning to look inside and really just face and confront what you were actually feeling on that deeper level. What was that like for you?
I think for me, what really was the catalyst was in the realization of what it was that was keeping me from feeling appreciative of myself. I would say was the biggest thing. It was the realization that I had this longing and lacking of place for self-approval, self-acceptance, self-worth, and self-love through a really distant connection that I'd had with my mother my entire life. And it all started to paint its picture for me and realize how I sought out relationships with women, how I sought out relationships with friends, how I sought out job roles or the lack thereof chasing job roles because I didn't think I felt I deserved them. And always putting a limit on myself on how far I actually could go due to these subconscious programming beliefs and stories and narratives that I was running deep behind all the other apps that were going on inside myself. And in that awakening to see that was, like you said, it was difficult. Yes, the reality was very difficult to see that I had to own up that it's all on me and it's no one else's deal to work with or solve, or I can't blame it on anyone else anymore. All these circumstances that I allowed myself to pin the tail on for blame. And at first stepping into this work it was a lot of self-reflection, and it was a lot of looking at myself honestly and humbly and through a lens of clarity, and
Mm,
allowing the medicine to come through me and show me truly what I needed to see, that I really had been pushing down for 20 plus years since I was probably an early teen. I just didn't want to look at. And yeah, it was really rough at first. Uh, I've always kept with me for the last 5 years of doing this work that It's like anything that we work for that is worth having. Nothing that's worth having comes easy. And having that real true self-identity, that true self-worth, that true love of self and appreciation, that work doesn't come easy. And but working through it, it's made it so much more valid. It's made it the foundation of that inside my being so much more real, so much more true, that I had to go and get it. I had to go and find it. I had to go and look at it. It was like the needle in the haystack. I had to search for years for it. And yeah, it's been quite self-approving to not need it from anyone else but myself.
Yeah. I find that just that process of letting go of the need or the desire for approval and acceptance for others is where that sense of self-worth and self-acceptance starts to shine through. So how do we find that though? How do we actually get in touch with this place within ourselves that feels that deep sense of self-acceptance, self-worth, self-love? How did you get in touch with that?
Oh, something I even just realized there was a lack of even just last year at doing a lot more of the inner work, that there were still some layers of lacking accountability. And I found for myself that it became so much easier early on to look outside myself as a reason why something wasn't showing up, or why I wasn't feeling a certain way, or why life wasn't happening for me the way I'd wanted it to. And last year, I went through a really deep inner process over a several month period where I really was forced to take a lot of accountability for a lot of experiences that took place in my life, and then not allowing those experiences to have a true story inside of me. And when I was looking at things in my life, I would have to go way back and look at things and just go, all right, I played victim for this long. And then that doesn't mean like, oh, woe is me, the whole world's crumbling, but maybe just saying that, oh, because my friend stole this from me, this is why I now don't trust certain people. And really going, okay, well, but where was I accountable in that friendship of what took place? Where was I accountable in the relationship of why the girlfriend that I dated or the girlfriends that I dated ended up leaving me? Instead of saying all these other things that I was saying, going back and just taking instances of my life, the experiences, and just going bullet point by bullet point and just saying, where was I accountable? And that allowed me to have power back. It allowed me to feel, okay, if I was accountable for this, if I was part responsible for the situation, I actually have power to fix it. But if I continue to say someone else was responsible, I can't fix them at this point. It's too far gone. They're not in my life, or I'm not going to go to them at this point. I can fix me. I'm still with me. I still got me. And so being able to look at those things and honor them with truth, and part of that was I've held this analogy also that ayahuasca has helped me with, because she does kind of kick you off the cliff into the abyss of like, it's time to do the work, buddy. I had ran from it for so long, and it's something that I admire you deeply about, is how much work you've done without that process. For me, my subconscious was too tricky. It was too meek. It was too weak. It was too callous. It did not want to face it head on. And the medicine was that kick that for me, I needed. And I've looked at it as these wounds of accountability that I needed to take were like using victimhood was a real easy Band-Aid. And I was able to keep putting Band-Aids on that over the years. And to take accountability is like, imagine when you cut yourself as a kid, if you were to not tell your parents and you don't know how to clean it, you just put a Band-Aid on it, you want to tell them and you cover it up. Eventually it's to start getting infected and fester. And taking accountability was ripping that Band-Aid off and looking at it, cleaning it out, even with the festering wound and how long it's been in there festering, and cleaning that wound out, opening it back up, allowing light to pour into it, really
Yeah.
looking at it with a clear lens now that it's open and clean, and sending it love. And like through the accountability, I could put love into it. Now that I can see it, I can be responsible again. I can be responsible, acting conscious human man to say, okay, I seen what I did before. Now I can be responsible to not do that again. And I can pour light and love into it, learn to forgive myself. The past is the past.
Yeah.
I had to take on this concept that it's just feedback. My life and the experiences that took place were just feedback for me to grow.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't the detriment of who I am. They didn't have to be the narrative that I continued to allow to roll out and see in my eyes, and how I saw the world, to feel in my heart when things took place. It's just feedback. And I've really kept that with me the last 9 months of just, it's just feedback. When I get triggered by something, all right, it's just feedback. What is this feedback telling me? And where can I be accountable, and why this feedback's showing up in my world? And what new meaning can I place on it instead of allowing it to just like all of a sudden trigger an emotion? And so, yeah, it's kind of how I've looked at it, is like the accountability thing was the biggest for me. Really going through the bullet points and being accountable, looking at both sides and saying, where did I play a role in this?
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you that accountability piece was a big game changer for you to start to take a look at that and take ownership for some of what you've experienced. I'm gonna actually take that one further, because there's a quote that was shared actually in the last episode by the guest, and you touched on it here, and I want to just kind of emphasize it even further. Is well, the quote goes something along the lines of, not verbatim, the point at which your trauma happened wasn't your fault.
Mm.
Everything after that is your responsibility. So why I want to bring this up, because you use that word responsibility. And I want to highlight that because even if the experiences that we went through, even if you were to look at that and not fully see or see at all where you may have been accountable to that, in most cases, I think like we did play a part. But even if there wasn't a part played by us, even if that friend stole that thing from you and there was nothing that you could have done about it, yes, that happens to you, but how you address that and everything that comes after that, how you relate to that experience is 100. That experience wasn't your fault, but everything after that's your responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I think what you're doing here powerfully, man, is like just taking, well, I say taking ownership for what you went through, and realizing that, the past happened. Now, what am I going to do with that? All right. So I feel like we've done a really good job of identifying the first step required in any sort of inner work and healing process. And that's being willing to look at your shit. Being willing, like, to at least say, well, one, the point that you made is like taking ownership and holding yourself accountable to it, being willing to look at it and say, how do I take responsibility for this now? But then there's a few steps that I think come after that. So I'd love to hear you share a bit about your own process. Once you've turned that lens inward, I know a lot of the healing that you've done has been with the support of the medicine, but I have a feeling that the way that you go about it, and I'm sure that's not the only inner work that you've done. I feel like there's lessons that can be drawn even from your experiences with the medicine that someone can take and apply even when they're not perhaps using the medicine for that support. So what comes after that? We're looking within. How do we go about actually shifting and transforming some of these narratives that we've held in our subconscious for so long?
Yeah, I really love that question, because as much as I do believe that this plant medicine is something that everyone should do, I also know that it's not for everyone. And it does take a very special person to want to step into that realm and to want to go that far. It doesn't mean that someone can't go as far on their own without it. It's just like I said, it was the kick off the ledge that I needed. Is want to encourage and support people in between those layers that maybe are having a lot of resistance to this work, or even maybe health wise aren't fit, aren't a good candidate to do this work. And what I've come to and what I've found for myself and people that I've worked with, and working with people that have been curious about the medicine but not sure to come to it yet, but want to do some of that self work, like you said, that how do I get there, but if I don't want to go that route, is really starting to rewind the tape. Like I said, really starting to go back a little bit further. And first, I usually like to ask people is to just start looking at the emotions or the thoughts that are reoccurring more often in your life, and kind of assessing, are these emotions empowering or disempowering? And what we usually tend to find is if we haven't done any self-work, we start to realize a lot of times that we're more or less running a story of disempowering thoughts and emotions. And when we start to connect those thoughts and emotions to beliefs that we carry about ourselves, or identities that we hold of ourselves, this is where then the person can start to realize, oh, there's something here. There's this block that's not allowing me to live in this alignment. And this is where I like to say I like to help people, or I don't even like to say help anymore. I like to say support and encourage. I feel everyone has the ability to do it themselves. And it's always just so much nicer to have some nice, solid support and encouragement from someone that can love us and honor us and hold us accountable through some of this stuff. And it's just like with me and you, I don't ever think you come to help me with anything, but you've always supported me and you've always encouraged me. And it makes me want to do even more of the work because I have that type of connection with you. And so when we start looking at these beliefs, you start to see the limit, you start to see the blocks, you start to see like, oh, no wonder I'm not taking action in this area of my life. Or no wonder I'm not calling, or I'm calling in these love relationships in my life. And oh, no wonder these friends keep surrounding me. Or no wonder my job hasn't changed and I continue to have the same narrative of jobs that I continue to still feel unaligned or unpurposeful in. And so from there, as the beliefs, I start to ask people like, okay, well, let's go back. When do you first remember start to feeling these beliefs? And, we all start to realize it's that 5 to 12-year-old, we start to have some memory of like, oh yeah, I first remember feeling that way then. Or because of an experience that happened when I was in my late teens, I started to feel this way. Or a boss had told me this one thing, and then I started to doubt myself. And so I've only taken jobs up to this point. And I really am a strong believer that we only know our life by the story we continually tell ourselves. Mm-hmm. And the beliefs fuel that story. And how do we look back if the beliefs are there and there's a story there? Can we unwind that story? It's almost like characters in a movie, like our favorite character, our favorite superhero plays a role up to a certain point until he decides now's the time. Now I don't want to live this story anymore. I'm going to recreate a new story and live a more empowered version of myself. And it's very similar to the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. And are we willing to look at our experiences, reformulate or recapsulate a story around our old experiences, and then let those be the catalyst for a new story to emerge? Allow those to be the seed in the garden of what can come forth. Like you said, problems are just providing us an opportunity to look at things differently. We all need problems to survive. It's how we grow. It's how we expand. It's how we transform. It's how everything in life on earth transforms through problems. We don't look at life. We don't look at earth and go, oh, we just get so depressed over how earth is evolving. We're just like, wow, it's beautiful how it's evolved over the problems that's happened on this earth. And so, using those problems as catalysts and reformulating our perspective about old problems to realize they're just experiences that gave us feedback to reanalyze, like you said, until it happened and we decided the meaning of what it meant for us. It was just a situation, but we needed that problem to take place for us to create a story, to create a narrative, to create a belief.
I feel I really love the opening of using our emotions and the emotions that we regularly feel as kind of the segue into this work. That's where you started, right? Like, what are the emotions that you are regularly feeling? I like to call this your emotional home. What's your emotional home, right? That's we all have this emotional home that we find ourselves coming back to, right? We of course all experience fluctuations in how we feel, but if you really like took a look at, if you were to zoom out and look at the scope of your last few days, your last few weeks, your last few months, most if not all of us have this kind of set point where we spend the vast majority of our time. And so when you began with what are the emotions that we are feeling on a regular basis and using that as like an opening to this work, I think that's a really great starting point. And then the connection that you drew there that I love is seeing how that emotion is associated with a belief or a story that we're telling ourselves. And I really want to highlight this because I think all of our emotions are really rooted in these narratives, these repetitive thought patterns that, as we kind of touched on earlier, are being held subconsciously. So starting with the emotion, then tracing it to what's the belief that I'm holding that is upholding this emotion. I feel like this is giving us a really powerful kind of step-by-step process for how we can go about shifting this.
Yeah, it like I said at one point, it's more about I had to find a way to regain my power. And we talk about this a lot in our healing work and our spiritual journeys, like taking your power back and standing in your power. It made more sense to me. I was still like very young in my journey of like, all this spiritual talk and all these things that had to do that and do this. And I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, talk to me like I'm a sixth grader, you know? And if it was like, if I needed the power to move forward, I needed the encouragement, I needed to self-belief, it really had to make sense to me where this stuff was coming from. And if, like you said, if it was about the emotions that I was thinking more regularly, okay, now I get that. Because I've been living that life for 30 years. I get that. If anyone gets that, it's me.
It's making this process practical for people, and
Yeah.
I think that's what we're here to do right now, man. So we've kind of gotten the sense that these are beliefs and narratives that are kind of shaping our experience. That's another big point that I feel coming through here. It's we only live our story, and when we realize that so much of our story is just shaped by the stories that we're telling ourselves, well, here's where we can start to take ownership for the stories that we're telling so that we can create the experience that we want to create. So where do you go from here? You've gotten a sense of some of the beliefs that you're holding that aren't serving you. How do you go about transforming this?
How do I go about transforming like these new beliefs
Yeah, so
and like
shifting
shifting?
once you've come into awareness of a story that isn't serving you, a limiting belief, how do you go about shifting that?
The process that I found that had worked best for me, that really was a light switch. Even I was, let's see, it's 2022. So I was about 2.5 years into my healing journey. Now I'm starting to get a lot of awareness. I'm starting to see why I am the way I am and why I'm showing up the way I show up, why life showed up the way it did. But still I was still like I said, 2.5 years in, and I'm still like, well, how come I'm not making any shifts? How come I'm still feeling this way? I've went to the plant medicine. I see it all. I've done this work. I've purged this out. I've purged that out. I've cried over this 900 times. How come, how come it's still so relevant?
Yeah.
And I think this is something that people hear about how profound that work can be, but don't realize she's not the cure. She's just the light. She just turns on and illuminates the darkest parts of yourself to realize, like, this is all still who you are. Now I'm going to show you what you haven't seen for years or haven't wanted to look at, but you need to go and do the work. So this is a part that really is hard for a lot of people, because life then becomes a lot more illuminated, which is great. But in another instance, it can be very, very, very heavy, because now you have all the knowing and you might not know how to do the doing or be in your being. And like I said, it was about 2.5 years in, and I had a mentor and a coach, and she was working with me, and she gave me this beautiful lesson on looking at my beliefs, looking at my emotions, looking at my stories. And like now you said, how do I transform that? And the process that she helped me with, and which is now I'm able to help others with, because it made it make sense to me, right? I had to list all this stuff out, and I had to look at it. My emotions, my thoughts, my words, and my beliefs, and these stories that I was running. Then it was like, okay, I got that. Now, what is the value that I give this story? Where does each one of these stories have value? Think of it like a ranking system. Number one is the most prevalent. It's there the most often. And we would go through the stories, which all had beliefs, which all had emotions, which all had stories, and we give them this value. Where do they value? How do I value them? Let's say, for instance, my self-worth story is number one, where your self-worth story might be number 6. It's not the most valuable to you, but it's there, but it's just not the most prevalent. So as I have to look at my self-worth story and go, what rule do I attach to my self-worth? One of those was, my self-worth was tied into my fear of rejection from women, which of course was tied to my disassociation to my mother. And I'm going to just give you an example of how she took me through breaking this story down and making it make sense in a real elemental level. I had a fear of rejection. I had a fear of rejection from women, and I just would not approach women. I didn't want to go up to them. Sure. I didn't want to make the first move. I didn't like to talk to them. It was just, that was the biggest thing for me. So to me, I didn't want to be rejected. So I just wouldn't talk to them. So that was part of my self-worth story. It was like, well, I'll be worthy if I don't get rejected. So that's fine. But on the other side of that coin, I didn't realize that by not talking to women, I was also rejecting myself, because I would never allow myself the opportunity to not be rejected. So I had this double-edged sword that I'm playing on, and I don't even subconsciously see the negative side. I only right now am giving value to the positive side. If I avoid this, if I stay away from this, I'll feel safe. But the other side was, I'm walking right into a double-edged dagger, and I'm creating a rule that says, don't do that, do this. But if longer I stay over here, I'm going to continue to perpetuate this story of I'm not worthy, because I'm not going to get accepted by nobody, right? And so then from there, when I can see both sides of the coin, I can see both sides of the sword, I can look at both sides like they're both causing me pain, I can then start to rewrite a story about my self-worth or about rejection. And so then I'll rewrite a story like, we'll just use the fear of rejection. And I would rewrite a story, and I'd say, the more I believe that I'm not worthy and that no one loves me, the more I'll start to realize, let me reword that, because you say it in a way that's absolutely absurd. And so when you read it, you're like, that old value and story, that belief, all these emotions that attach to it no longer make sense to you. They no longer have resonance.
Mm.
I'm trying to think how we reword that. The more the more ridiculous I look at self rejection by by realizing that I have, and you write it in a way that it's impossible to put belief into that.
Yeah.
So you have one side of the coin that says, okay, this is absolutely absurd. There's no way I can believe that anymore. And then on the other side of the coin, you rewrite it in a way that you can experience self worth all the time. And so it'd be like something so simple as every time I wake up and look in the mirror, I'm worthy. And you write it in a way that it's so simple. You can't not experience it.
Mm.
Instead of creating a rule that's like, well, I'm only worthy in when women will talk to me. Well, I might not see women at all today, so that means I'm not worthy. So it's a way that you write on one side of the coin that used to always torment you. You write it in a way that's just absolutely absurd to think could ever be true. And on the other side, you rewrite it in a way that you can experience the worthiness or the appreciation or the validation all the time.
The way that I see that is it's this fine-tuning process. On one side, you want to instill a new belief that you're able to embody and see the truth in. And then on the other side of it, you're kind of fine-tuning the old beliefs so that you can see more clearly how it's ultimately not true.
Exactly. Exactly. And like we said, we go through a ranking of those old beliefs and those old stories, and then you just start to reword each one of them. And it's like what we do when we start a habit. You know, it takes 21 days to start a habit, it takes 6 to 8 months to create a lifestyle. So for 21 days, you just read those things to yourself. One, I'm sitting there laughing at myself, like, I can't believe I used to think this. And on the other side, I'm giving myself a little self validation every moment, a little affirmation of how great I feel. And
Mm.
you're just slowly reprogramming that subconscious little by little, just little dog treats, reteaching myself how to sit down, reteaching myself how to lay down, reteaching myself how to handshake, reteaching myself how to look myself in the mirror and say I love you. And it's just those little bits. I felt that as a human, I need to have it now. I need to do it right now.
Mm.
It doesn't work like that. It's not instant gratification. It takes time. And once I learned to give myself patience and grace, the love started to seep in, the appreciation, the self-worth. The more I could look myself in the mirror and be like, that's the man that I know I'm supposed to be.
Ooh, that's big, man. The more that you can give yourself grace through that process, the more you begin to feel that self-love begin to shine through.
Mm. Yeah, it was, like I said, it took 2.5 years to finally have that hit me like a wall.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so powerful because I think that just it gives us the space to perhaps not feel all right all the time, right? Because even in our old narratives, if we can bring grace and acceptance for ourselves in that process, it's funny how it's that acceptance that allows that narrative to kind of just like take its place and naturally dissolve. For one of the things I want to acknowledge about you is your gratitude.
Hmm.
That is something that I just can really feel. I remember I didn't think I was going to talk about this actually, but it's coming through now. I remember when we were in Costa Rica and we were sitting at the beach and you just started talking about the sunset. I think we were looking at it at the time, and I remember you just saying like how beautiful is that? And you welled up in gratitude at the sunset, man. Like I remember just feeling that so deeply. One, the fact that like you can be so open-hearted and vulnerable in front of me, and this is like when we were now starting to get to know each other. Um, and then two, the fact that you can feel that depth of gratitude that you demonstrated there and that you felt for the sunset. I love sunsets too, man, but I don't know if they've ever made me cry. And I say that as like the greatest form of a compliment. Um, yeah, how are you so grateful for something like that?
That also came with time and pulling the layers back that were getting in the way of me being able to be present in my body. And it did come again with the appreciation of doing this work and working with the plants and having them work through me, reconnecting the parts of myself that were locked away and disconnected and felt like all the synapses were broken. And honestly, I remember the exact place I was when my reformulation and gratitude for life showed up. And I did some ceremonies in January of 2021 in Costa Rica before I moved there, 4 months before I moved there. And I remember walking to the beach and I saw life through brand new eyes. I saw trees and I just was like, what? It doesn't even make sense. It's so beautiful. I just don't get it. it, it, I felt like I had been carrying this darkness around for so long, and there were so many masks on and so many veils in front of my eyes, so many chinks of armor around my heart that I just couldn't even feel what it felt like to breathe. And after doing the work for 2 years, it was able to stop me and slow down and allow me to be present and realize something that we talk about all the time is like to be present and to be present and to be here right now. And can you be here right now? And our brain is just a story generating machine that's always in the past and the future. And we lose connection to our heart, and we lose connection to the one true thing that allows us to be present in our body, which is our breath and our heart. And we've been told and programmed and force fed that the brain is the only operating system that thinks and creates. And it's like, it's the second. It's the heart that comes first. And from that spot is where we are truly connected with ourselves. And medicine helped me just like rebuild all these bonds to my heart again, and allow me to be able to breathe and breathe in air and just to be in my body. You know, that was the only way I can explain how it's allowed me to reformulate my appreciation for life, my life, people in my life. Like you said, to be able to look at a sunset and just be like, I can't believe I get to live here. I can't believe I get to live this life on this earth. Like, it's such a gift. My best friend, Travis, he always says, we get to come to earth to live out our wildest dreams. And it's like, it's the coolest thing ever. Like, what a gift we get to be here, like on this crazy, beautiful planet that works so perfectly for us. Like, it's just wild. It's just like when I think about it, it blows my mind. Like, I never used to think like this. I would have never talked like this 5 years ago, ever. It was just that reconnection with myself. What I feel like is like innocence. It's like our childlike state gets to come forward again through our heart and just relive playing in the dirt and picking up a stick and waving it as a magic wand, and grabbing a ladybug, and it's like a queen of some distant land. Or it's like that gets to happen again.
It's through connecting with the heart that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that reminder. The sunset, I almost cried when we were talking about it. I remember that. I was really...
That's so beautiful, man. And here you are doing it again for the audience. I love this, man. I love this. I feel that depth of gratitude, and like if this doesn't go without saying, you being this embodiment of that has this like this ripple effect on those that get to experience that through you. I know I'm experiencing that sense of just being pulled into my heart and into gratitude. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to other people getting to be invited into that space as well.
Yeah, I would have been, like I said, catch me 5 years ago, I would have been too embarrassed to even show that type of emotion, because there's all the self-judgment, all the stories about what it looks like as a man to cry, and you can't show that. And now the beauty of being a human is to experience every emotion you have every day, to feel alive. What a gift to be a human. Doesn't make sense.
Oh man, that vulnerability piece is exactly the other thing that I wanted to acknowledge, right? Because I'm seeing this connection between that and the open heartedness. They're one of the same thing. And that open heartedness is what I'm feeling like. What I'm receiving from this is it's the open heartedness that allows you to feel that depth of gratitude.
100%. 100%. The vulnerability thing. I didn't. As a man, you think vulnerable is weak. It's meek. It's not strong. And I realize that's one of my personal superpowers. My ability to be vulnerable, allow people to see my humanness.
You know, I also didn't see it going in this direction, but I think some of the best conversations are the ones where I couldn't have foreseen what was gonna come through, but I can feel the the pull this way, and it's already flowing. It's yeah, I'm seeing that a lot of what you're sharing now is directed to men, to brothers, and I feel like what you're sharing right now is a new message for men, because as we know, there's a shift taking place in our understanding of what it means to be a strong leader and man, and how we are being called to show up for ourselves, for our families, for our communities. So talk to me about it, man. You're feeling this call to speak to men and to share this message. What is the message?
Oh, I think for me personally, the message has always come back to looking at my own journey, because thankfully being around solid men like yourself and several others along this journey, that you're not speaking from a place without learned experience. You're not trying to be some wise, knowledgeable person unless you've lived through it and been through it. And for yourself, you're reaching, all audiences. And you speak from a place from the heart of experiences that you've lived through. So for me as a man, I've wanted to reach other men through a journey that I've experienced. And it was not knowing what it felt like to be with my own emotions, knowing what it was like to lie behind so many different masks and walls and veils. And I'd rather lie than allow you to see the real me. I'd rather tell you a story than allow you to really see the brokenness of who I am or who I was. And it is about that raw vulnerability. It has been a piece that I've realized in our hosting retreats and when I'm in even coaching sessions with men, that sometimes we'll be in a session and they'll share something, or I'll be looking to help them see a perspective from an experience that I've lived, so they can have a real true connection to that for themselves. Not something I learned out of a book, but an experience that I've had. And I'll just start crying, but it allows them to see that it's okay to be real.
Yeah.
Even if they don't know how to let that emotion come through, they're at least seeing it. And it allows them to shift in a perspective to say, if that person can do it, why am I struggling to feel that for myself, or express that for myself, or honor that of myself? And one thing that I've found that's really been a catalyst for that was redefining my belief around trust. And I didn't trust myself for probably 20 plus years. I didn't trust anything I said. I didn't trust the things that I was doing. I didn't trust in how I was showing up, because there was always some other ulterior motive going on. And so I think a lot of times we misconstrue how to gain trust. And I always hear people say, I'm not going to be vulnerable until I trust you. I'm not going to show this side of myself until I trust you. I'm not going to experience this type of thing with you I'm not going to love you till I trust you. And so I'll ask people, how do you get trust? And this is where the funny conundrum of how to get trust even comes from. A lot of people don't even know. Prove it to me is what they say. Well, you need to show me this. You need to show me. It's like, it's like I'm going to stand up in my castle wall, 14 layers deep behind my enemy lines, and you're going to show. You need to get up here and prove it. And then I always pose the question, but if you don't allow any type of vulnerability of yourself for someone to show you, how can they prove it?
Mm.
And what I realized was I didn't trust myself because I was never vulnerable enough to allow my truth to come out. So I didn't even trust myself. I had no self-integrity. Even though I put on a great show, everyone thought I was a really solid person. Deep inside, it was a battle. And so my message for men is, can we re-look at trust through the lens of vulnerability? And can we reinvestigate what it means to be vulnerable and feel what it feels like to trust, to be weak, to be strong, to be a warrior, to be a father, to be a brother, to be a husband that allows vulnerability to come through so trust can be reformulated.
Just to tie this together, I feel like that vulnerability piece and which, can create the space for trust to be cultivated. I think just to bring it back to the layering, the delayering, sorry, and that process of releasing the layers that impede and suppress and keep our hearts blocked, because that's where I feel like that sense of being willing to trust yourself. How can you trust yourself if you don't know who you are? And that's the journey I think that we've been circling around here, like discovering who you are beneath those layers of programming of, that's been conditioned and been passed down to you. And I feel like when we get in touch with that, then that ability to be more vulnerable and open-hearted in relationships, that really begins to open up.
100%. 100%. It's below those layers, that fixed identity, that fixed emotions, those fixed beliefs. Down in there is that true self that's been calling for us to reconnect with all over again and over and over and over again. Not just once, but being able to do that ongoing, to continue, like we said at the very beginning, to get out of stuckness states, you have to be willing to revisit that vulnerability of yourself.
Are there any other qualities that you feel the masculine is here to embody?
Yeah, I think again, I'm going to speak for me. It's been coming back to the integrity of who I am. And I couldn't even know who I am, like you said, unless I was willing to be vulnerable and real with myself, to go and look at the mirror, to go and take accountability. And integrity, I had to even re-look at and find a new definition for, a new understanding for, so I could understand it in a way that I would be able to comprehend in this newer version, this newer, greater version of myself that I was unpacking over and over. And I'd found that the word integrity, a lot of people always think or hear or say is doing the right thing when no one's looking. And what I'd found was that the actual word integrity came from structural buildings, a term used for the confidence or the solidity of a structure to be able to be built upon, the integrity of a foundation. And I started looking at my life like a blueprint of a building and looking at all the different compartments that, or, all, like if you looked at a blueprint of a building layout and all the different pieces that would go into that building. Was my integrity solid? Was I confident? Was I secure in all those different areas? And if I wasn't, I needed to revisit them. And so it's like helping the men re-look at their own integrity of themselves. I know mine was like, I struggled with keeping with saying I'm this way, but in the background by myself, I'm a different way. I'm hiding behind my addictions and my emotional letdowns and my self-worth stories. I put on a show, but the integrity of who I was all faltered because it was all bullshit. So it was just like, I think integrity has been a real big thing for me. And looking at that to allow someone to break up the foundation. You know, you can't build a house, like you can't have a great house on faulty foundation. It's just like relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Always a crack. There's a crack there. There's always a crack. You can mend over it, but there's always a crack. You can't just like hope the foundation fixes itself. But if you blow out the foundation, like we talked about, going way back all the way through all the layers, and you re-look at the integrity and you rebuild a house on new foundation, I've when I did that for myself, I felt like a new man. It's crazy to be 40 years old and be like, I'm literally get to be reborn as a new human being with new integrity, new beliefs, new stories, new ways I look at life, how I look through the lens of my eyes at the world. I feel like a brand new human being.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt like a rebirth. And to me, I would love for men that struggle in stuckness or self-worth or validation or lackings of self-love to be able to refeel that, to feel what it feels like to be reborn brand new and to be able to relive life again, even if you're 40 or 50 or 60 or 21, to have a new chance at life. Like, who gets that? Who takes that all the time? Not many people.
What's that, your new foundation?
I found that my core essence of who I am, forget my family, forget all the traveling I've done, forget all the cool things I've seen or people I've hung out with, the money I've made and lost, forget all of that. Forget the clothes I wear, what I look like, who am I at my core? What is my integrity? And it came down to 3 words that I hold as my true value, that I can lay my head down at night and say, when I'm at times of hardship, when I'm in times of self-doubt, who am I at the core? If you were to strip it all away, you know, so many men have a hard time with that. Take away being a father, take away being a husband, take away being a provider, take away your job title, and take away your car and your fancy things that make you look like a man. Who are you? It's really hard to say who you are. A lot of people don't know how to do that. And I didn't know how to till the last year and a half. I'm a compassionate, vulnerable, loving man. That's the integrity of who I am. So at any time I feel I'm lost on my journey, okay, who am I right now? Okay, let's not forget I'm a compassionate, vulnerable, loving man. Do I need to be that towards myself? Do I need to be that towards you, Bryan? Do I need to be that towards the lady on the street that needs help with her bags across the street? Who am I at my integrity? Like we go back to the story when I got stolen from, someone steals something from me. Okay, who am I? It's coming down to that integrity of who I am. Who am I at my core? And that's my values. That's who I truly feel is me at my true essence.
And how were you able to discover that?
Well, stripping everything away.
Like,
really being honest of like what gives me honor to show up as a human in life. How do I feel my emotions come through me? You know, I'm super vulnerable these days, like, and I appreciate that about myself. Rewriting those stories, like we talked about earlier, looking at both sides of the coin, re-ranking my values, and looking at the values that I feel are going to give me the best edge when hardship lands at my front door.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at qualities that I feel I want to represent me and listing them out, literally, like we said at the very beginning, looking at those empowering or disempowering emotions. To me, I feel those 3 empowering emotions define me, and they will define every action, every thought, every word, and every feeling I have. If I'm coming from that place of integrity, I know I'm going to be good.
Sum that up, I feel like there's this just very simple but powerful practice of who am I, or what have I been embodying and experiencing, what states, what emotions, and then digging deeper into that, what beliefs are associated with this, who's that old self, and what am I being called to embody, what values, what type of person am I looking to show up as. And then we look at that old self and we dig into it and we peel away those layers. We allow for those emotions, those beliefs, those narratives to be looked at and processed through us. And then it's inviting in that new story, that new paradigm, because all of those qualities that we seek to embody, right? For you, it's vulnerability. I don't know why I'm never good with that word. That's not my word to say. The integrity, right? For me, one that's coming through is devotion. All of those qualities, those things that we value, is who we are at the core.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how you laid that out in a way that can almost be visually seen of the process. And it's literally the process that came to me when I created my coaching program, and this idea of timeline extraction. It's like getting out of ourselves, going back, like you said, going back and looking at all this crap. Okay. After I look at all my crap, now I have to be who I have to take accountability. This is who I am because of that crap. Okay. Well, who am I if all that isn't true? Okay. Well, I'm this person. Then I can be in the present moment. And who do I want to be in the future? So it's going from the past, stepping in back into my present with all the truth, and now redeciding who do I want to be now in the future.
I feel like in some ways everything that we've shared so far is the answer to this next question. I'm gonna ask it anyway. Let's start with this. What is greatness?
I love it because that word can mean so much to so many people. Greatness to me is being able to wake up and see myself and know that I'm not defined by yesterday. Know that I'm not perfect. I have a new opportunity today. I know who I am at my core. And I know that there's endless opportunities for me to create in every single moment that I'm going to live in this day. To me, that's greatness. It's the greatness that you get to feel, to be alive, to do whatever it is you want without all the crap that used to stop you from doing the things you wanted to do in the past. To me, that's living in greatness. Knowing how much control and power you have to create the life that you want to live, that next greatest chapter, always turning the page towards that.
Greatness is knowing that nothing can define you but what you choose to define you. And then from that space, choosing what it is that you want to represent and mean and matter to you, and living through that lens of what's important to you so you can create that life that you desire.
An opportunity every day to be another great version, the newest, greatest version of yourself. I like to say the next greatest chapter. Turn another page. There's another great part of you that's coming.
It's what calls us forward.
Exactly.
And how do we embody greatness?
We embody it by truth, being vulnerable, knowing who you are, the integrity of your being, and then being that no matter what. I used to live defined by what I used to think everyone was thinking of me or what I wanted them to think of me. Now I've been able to release the fact and know that even as great as I may be or want to be or try to act as for myself, someone may not like it. It may not be someone's cup of tea. And I have to just honor them and salute them, send them love, and know that I'm doing my best to be my best today. I can't do more than be my best.
It's not possible.
It's impossible to do more than your best. Just show up and do your best.
Yeah. I just want to also draw the association between being our best and being our authentic self.
Definitely a difference here. They're in alignment. Definitely in alignment, but there's a difference.
Oh, so you think there's a difference?
I think being your authentic self is knowing who you are at your core, your integrity, being truthful with yourself. And being your best is just doing that exact thing. It's the act of being your authentic self.
Yeah.
Is you in your best.
Yeah.
So that's why I said it's they're slightly different, but they're totally in conjunction.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's exactly kind of what I wanted to get at. Being our best is expressing our authenticity.
Yes, exactly. I
Yeah,
mean, it is one and the same.
beautiful, man. And I think we've done a pretty solid job of really unpacking how we will unpack the stories that keep us from fully expressing that. Brother, we got one last thing to dive into. It's the ascending round. You ready to get into it?
Yeah, that's exciting. Whatever this is, I'm excited.
You're about to find out. It's a few quick fire questions, quick short answers, or you can talk forever. That's totally cool too. But five questions that I throw at all my guests and some of my favorites. Let's jump into the first one. If you can get everyone in the world to read one book, what would it be?
True Love by Thich Nhat Hanh.
Nice.
It redefines what true love means because it's not just being about in a relationship with someone else. It's about communication. It's about understanding yourself. It's about your feelings. It's about other people. To me, that changed the whole definition of what love meant and how to love and how to receive love.
Beautiful. What one new perspective, practice, have you been integrating in the last 6 months that has had the greatest impact on you?
Ooh, one practice. It was something I mentioned today. The idea of it's all just feedback. And until I give it meaning, it holds no value. Because I was so quick to place meaning on things based on what we talked about, our subconscious emotions and our subconscious thoughts and our subconscious stories and our subconscious memories, that if I could stop for just a moment and be like, it's just feedback, I can reassess everything in that moment. How I want to perceive this information, how I want to take it in, which parts I want to take in, and which parts are going to help be the lesson that I get to have in this moment.
Yeah. It's recognizing that it has no meaning until we give it one.
Exactly. It's just feedback.
Powerful, man. Next question for you, brother, is what does it mean to ascend?
It's the saying that I say for myself. To meaning to ascend is to step into that next greatest chapter of yourself. Ascending is going up. It's moving forward. It's moving into something. It's never becoming something. It's always moving toward something. And to me, it's my word for ascend that makes it make sense at a 6th grade level for me is to step into that next greatest version of myself. A lot of people might not, all they hear ascend means go up. And if I'm looking to go up in who I am, it's to continue to know I need to become a better version of myself. And that process is a never-ending journey.
Yeah.
Forward, ahead, where I have the power to create.
It's being in that moment of becoming that next greatest version of yourself. The joy and the fulfillment of that, as you said, it's never ending. So the joy and the fulfillment of that isn't becoming that best version of yourself. It's continuing to become a better and greater version of yourself.
1000%.
And so then the big question is, how do we ascend?
If how do we ascend is based off my feeling of ascension, stepping to the next greatest version of yourself, is back to the simple power that I have every single day is to wake up, look myself in the mirror. No, I'm not defined by yesterday's experiences. I'm not yesterday's beliefs, emotions, or thoughts. I have the ability and desire and intentionality to create today the next greatest version of myself. As long as I stay authentic, stay true to my integrity, stay true to who I am, to be my best version of myself, to do my best. that's how I continue to seek to ascend.
I got one last final question for you, man. It's the grand finale one. You ready for it?
Yeah.
Michael, you just actualized the ability to telepathically communicate to all of humanity. What do you say?
Remember that you are loved. I remember how hard it used to be to love myself, to truly honor myself. It didn't matter who told me. It didn't matter how many times I tricked people into wanting to love me. I didn't know how to remind myself that I'm loved. And if I could remind every single person every single day how loved they are and how magnificent they are, I would. Because I feel that so many people deserve that.
Thank you, brother, for your
Thank you.
message, for your presence, for your vulnerability, even though I can't say the word right. Thank you for being such a beautiful example of gratitude and what it looks like to embody that deep, profound sense of open-hearted gratitude. You know, it inspired me way back when I got to experience it on the beach of Costa Rica, and now I get the opportunity to give it the platform to inspire others as well. For that, I'm grateful.
You've always held true to that words you gave me, that you would give me a platform anytime you have the opportunity, and you have. Thank you, Bryan. I'm super grateful for you. Thank you for believing me when I first was getting started.
And someday we'll look back at this and see it as the first of them.
Yeah, we definitely got a lot more work to do together.
With that being said, bro, I also want to give you a platform to share more about what you are up to. If someone wants to perhaps get in contact with you, or perhaps they're interested in coaching, or they just want to be there to see the great content that you're putting out, where's the best place for them to find you?
Thank you, brother. My Facebook is one, and it's just under my name, Michael O'Shea. Also, my Instagram is also a very good one. It's Michael__O'Shea. And yeah, I've started a men's group on Facebook where I'm just starting to just share messages of inspiration and just reminders of just stepping into your power and stepping into your greatness. We do usually once a month Zooms right now to connect as men. I am leading a sacred pilgrimage for men to Peru end of May for a week of ayahuasca, a trip to Machu Picchu, and a trip to Rainbow Mountain. We have some retreats upcoming, also beginning of May, June, and July. Possibilities for anyone even wants to just consult on possible coaching or the mentorship program that I've created. That's also there. I always do a free consultation for that. And then, yeah, the ayahuasca book I just wrote. If people who ever feel called, they're curious, they're uncertain, they're fearful, they're resistant, the book's a guidebook to exactly that, to allow you to connect with yourself and with the idea of this experience and see if it's right for you. And if it is, the steps that you should take to find the most confident, trustworthy, authentic space that you can to be served that medicine and to be sit with it. It doesn't have to be with me. If you're going to do it, I want to make sure that you're able to do it somewhere that's safe and sacred and honorable and trustworthy. So that's also on Amazon. If you just look up ayahuasca and then my name, it comes up.
All of the links to everything that you just mentioned will also be in the description to wherever this is shared. So thank you, bro, again for sharing that and for all these beautiful offerings that you're putting out there. Yeah, it's been my honor and pleasure to support getting that out there in the world.
Thank you, brother. It's always an honor and support to see what you're doing and the people you're touching and the souls you're enlightening. Thank you for being you. You've inspired me since we met.
Senders, that is going to be all for my conversation with Michael Oshia. I trust that I was able to inspire you to step into your greatness, because we are powerful beyond measure, and there's always a next level to you and your greatness. Senders, before you go, if you've enjoyed this episode and you feel like it has served you and would like to continue to receive content that will support you in stepping into your greatness, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel or the podcast if you haven't yet already. And if you have just 2 minutes, I'd greatly appreciate it if you took a moment to head on over to either Apple Podcast or Spotify to leave the show a review. And again, this really supports us in growing the show and continuing to be able to create this content. Senders, thank you for being great and for continuing to evolve into greater versions of yourself, for your families, and for our collective. And until next time, keep ascending.